found out my friend died. You know, when your friend died, don't you get nervous? I'm 43. When the motherfucker be dying, you got to find out what age he is, you know what I mean? Man, 43, how old was he? 45.
And I'm a connoisseur of love, you know what I mean? I know how to touch. I know where they like it so much. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, it even rhymes.
All I can say is what Bernie told me. And he was upset with Steve because he said Steve tried to get him taken off for the Oceans movie he did.
Oceans 11?
Yeah, and tried to vie for his part after he already got hired.
Why did Bernie Mac truly hate Steve Harvey? What happened that made him so angry? Bernie Mac was a comedy legend, known for making people laugh, but behind the scenes, he had some real problems with Steve Harvey.
And I know the truth. You think I'm gonna let you shit on Bernie and then come get me? I'm the next king? Fuck you.
Something happened that made him lose all respect. Was it betrayal? Was it disrespect? People still talk about it today. Let's find out what really happened and why Bernie Mac never forgave Steve Harvey.
He was a smooth, articulate, real nice dresser. I could see why my mother, probably was attractive to him.
Bernie Mac was a man who could make anyone laugh, but his life was not easy. He was born as Bernard Jeffrey McCullough in Chicago, Illinois. He grew up in a tough neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. His mother, Mary McCullough, raised him alone because his father, Jeffrey Harrison, was not around much.
There was a lot of people in this house. At one point, it might have been 10 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. That's a lot of people.
Bernie was part of a big family and they didn't have a lot of money. But even as a child, he found ways to make people laugh. When Bernie was just 8 years old, he showed his talent for comedy. At a church dinner, he stood up and made jokes about his grandparents. His grandfather was a deacon at the church and Bernie imitated him in a funny way.
My grandfather was a deacon of the church. He was go to work, pray.
Everyone laughed, and that's when Bernie realized he had a gift. He loved making people smile, and from that moment he knew he wanted to be a comedian. But life was not kind to Bernie. When he was only 16, his mother died from cancer. This was one of the hardest things he ever went through. His mother was his whole world, and losing her changed everything. Not long after, Bernie also lost his older brother, his grandmother, and even his father. It was a painful time for him, but he found a way to keep going.
She would tell us, I'm gonna whip you. I'm gonna get you. We would go all day. And you like, oh, it's bedtime now, no whooping. Soon as you get ready to doze off, here she comes.
Bernie once said, I came from a place where there wasn't a lot of joy. He knew what it was like to feel sad, so he wanted to make others laugh. Making people happy became his mission in life. Even though he was hurting inside, he never let it stop him from chasing his dreams. One of the most painful memories of his life was seeing his mother suffer from cancer. He once shared a story about coming home after playing baseball. He was so excited because he had hit a home run. But when he walked into the house, his excitement disappeared. He saw his mother sitting there and she looked weak. She wasn't fully covered, and Bernie saw a big scar on her chest. She had surgery to remove one of her breasts because of cancer. Bernie was just a child and he didn't understand what was happening. He felt scared and confused. His mother didn't want him to worry, so she told him to close the door and not ask questions. But Bernie needed answers. He went to his grandmother hoping she would explain, but she told him to ask his mother. No one wanted to talk about it, and that made Bernie feel even more lost. His mother was trying to protect him, but deep down, Bernie knew something was wrong. Before she passed away, Bernie's mother wanted to make sure he would be okay. She wrote a long letter to his aunt, explaining her illness and what she wanted for Bernie's future. She believed in her son and knew he would grow up to be strong. Even though she wouldn't be there to see it, she had faith that he would make it through life. After losing his mother, Bernie did not give up. He was determined to follow his dream. He started performing comedy anywhere he could, even in the subway. He would stand in front of strangers and tell jokes, hoping to make them laugh. He wasn't making much money, but he didn't care. He just wanted to bring joy to people.
I tell you why Andy Griffith is my favorite, because he was so secure. I love security.
Before Bernie Mac became a big name in Hollywood, He had a tough journey. He was a hard-working man who did whatever he could to support his family. He wanted to make people laugh, but success did not come easy. Bernie took on all kinds of jobs to pay the bills. He worked as a janitor, cleaning floors and emptying trash. He worked in the kitchen, cooking food for others. He even moved heavy furniture for a living. No job was too small for Bernie because he had to take care of his loved ones. Even though he dreamed of being a comedian, he knew he had to be responsible first. He never gave up, even when times were hard.
You know you're a black motherfucker when you put fingerprints on charcoal.
Bernie Mac's big break came in 1992 when he appeared on Def Comedy Jam, a popular show on HBO. This show introduced him to a much bigger audience. People saw how funny he was and they loved his bold style. His jokes were different from other comedians. He talked about real life, struggles, and the things people were afraid to say. His performance on the show was so strong that people started talking about him everywhere. This was the moment that changed everything for Bernie Mac. After Def Comedy Jam, Bernie started getting small roles in movies. He appeared in Mo Money in 1992 and later in Friday in 1995. These roles were not big, but they gave him experience. He learned more about acting and how Hollywood worked. Even though these were small parts, Bernie was happy. He knew every step forward was important. He also got his own HBO show, Midnight Mac. This was a great chance for him to show the world more of his comedy style. He had a way of making people laugh while also talking about the truth. He was different from other comedians and people loved him for it.
You all in for a treat. I got this lovely young lady coming up. She's no bigger than a minute. We got $1 million voice. You're gonna be entertained tonight. She's from Memphis, Tennessee, but she lives here. Please give a warm applause for one of my favorite male VR chick, Roger.
One of the biggest moments of Bernie Mac's career came when he joined the original Kings of Comedy. This comedy tour was huge.
All I can say is what Bernie told me. And he was upset with Steve because he said Steve tried to get him taken off for the Oceans movie he did.
Ocean's 11?
Yeah, and tried to vie for his part after he already got hired.
Bernie Mac, Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and D.L. Hewley performed in front of massive crowds across America. Their tour was so popular that it was even made into a movie by Spike Lee. This film showed Bernie Mac's unique humor and helped him become even more famous. Fans loved his fearless jokes and the way he told stories. He was not afraid to say what was on his mind, and people respected that.
Because the word motherfucker is a noun. It describes a person, place, or thing. You know, when you hear...
However, behind the scenes, things were not always smooth. There were rumors that Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey did not get along. Comedian D.L. Hewley talked about this in an interview years later. He said that the problems between Bernie and Steve were one of the reasons the second Kings of Comedy tour never happened. Fans were excited for another tour, but it never came.
I remember I was at the golf course and we were getting ready to put it together and everybody was all excited. And
Hewley shared that the tension between Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey made it impossible to work together. They had a meeting to discuss the tour while playing golf. Everything seemed fine at first, but the next day Bernie Mac changed his mind. He decided to walk away, and that was the end of their plans. Many people believe this was because Steve Harvey was getting more TV opportunities than Bernie Mac. Steve had multiple shows and was being treated like the biggest star of the group. This may have made Bernie Mac feel unappreciated. He worked just as hard as the others, but it seemed like he was not getting the same respect. Each comedian had his own style. Steve Harvey was a smooth talker who liked to joke about audience members. He would point out someone's clothes, hairstyle, or job, and make fun of them in a lighthearted way. People enjoyed it because it felt playful. Bernie Mac, on the other hand, had a tougher style. His jokes were bold, sometimes raw, and focused on real-life struggles. His comedy connected with people on a deep level. Some say Steve Harvey may have been jealous of Bernie Mac's ability to stand out. This may have been one of the reasons for their rivalry.
Of course, that was, definitely a contributing circumstance, but I also think that it had a lot to do with the promoter on the thing, because he got a bigger head than all of us. Right. So the dude that put us all together started to really think it was about him, So.
Cedric the Entertainer has confirmed what many people have been saying for years. Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey did not get along. Cedric was part of the famous Kings of Comedy tour with Bernie, Steve, and D.L. Hewley. While talking on Shannon Sharp's Club Shay Shay podcast, Cedric admitted that Bernie and Steve had their differences. He said both of them were strong personalities and they didn't always see things the same way.
Yeah. I mean, they were the kind of guys that they both alpha males, like they both, they just saw it different,
They were both leaders in their own way, and that made it hard for them to get along. But even though they had issues, they still managed to finish the tour. Cedric also said that the feud was one of the reasons they never did another tour together, but he added that the promoter of the tour also caused problems. According to Cedric, the man who put the Kings of Comedy together started acting like he was the biggest star. He wanted all the attention, and that caused even more drama. So between the bad blood between Bernie and Steve and the problems with the promoter, another tour just wasn't possible. Another person who confirmed the tension between Bernie and Steve is DJ Ed Lover. On his podcast, Come On Son, he backed up what comedian Cat Williams recently said on Club Shay Shay. Ed Lover explained that he was once asked to join the Kings of Comedy after Bernie Mac passed away, but he refused because of how Steve Harvey treated Bernie. Ed Lover said he had a lot of respect for Bernie and he didn't want to be part of something that involved Steve.
All I can say is what Bernie told me. Mm-hmm. And he was upset with Steve because he said Steve tried to get him taken off of the Oceans movie he did.
Oceans 11?
Yeah, and tried to vie for his part after he already got hired.
Ed Lover also revealed that Bernie told him personally about the problems with Steve. He said Bernie told him that Steve tried to take his role in Oceans 11. This matches what Cat Williams said in his interview. Bernie felt like Steve was jealous of him and was trying to stop him from getting good roles in Hollywood. Ed Lover said he believes Bernie because Bernie told him this with his own mouth. He didn't hear it from someone else. He heard it directly from Bernie Mac himself. This isn't the first time people have talked about Steve Harvey being jealous of Bernie. In 2003, Bernie did an interview with GQ magazine where he accused Steve of trying to sabotage him. He said Steve wanted to be the biggest star and didn't want Bernie to succeed. Years later, in 2010, Steve finally responded to Bernie's claims. He said he was hurt by what Bernie said and insisted that it wasn't true. But many fans didn't believe Steve.
And I know the truth. You think I'm gonna let you shit on Bernie and then come get me? I'm the next king? Fuck you. Why?
A lot of people think Steve Harvey has always been arrogant and treated other black comedians poorly. Some fans took to social media to express their feelings about Steve. One person wrote, "I never liked Steve Harvey. He has always had a superiority complex over other black comedians, including Bernie and Cedric." Another person added, "Y'all ever heard of the Boule?" Steve is down with them. The real reason Bernie died is out there. You just have to dig deep to find it. People have been debating this feud for years, and it seems like there are always new details coming out. Bernie Mac is no longer here to tell his side of the story, but many believe he was treated unfairly. Steve Harvey continues to be successful, but some people will never forgive him for what they think he did to Bernie. In the end, the Kings of Comedy was a legendary tour, but the drama behind the scenes shows that fame and success don't always bring people together. Bernie Mac was one of those rare people who could make anyone laugh. His comedy was real, honest, and full of energy. Whether it was on his hit TV show, The Bernie Mac Show, or in his stand-up performances, he had a way of making people feel connected to him. He wasn't just funny, he was relatable. People saw themselves in his stories, and that's what made him so special. But behind the jokes, Bernie was dealing with something serious. He had a disease called sarcoidosis, which causes swelling in different parts of the body. Not many people knew about it, but it was making life really hard for him. Even though he was sick, he kept working because he loved making people laugh. He didn't want his fans to see his pain, so he kept pushing forward. That kind of dedication is rare, but it also came at a price. His body was struggling, and the entertainment world didn't seem to care. All that mattered was making more money, even if it meant Bernie had to keep going when he really needed rest.
My last conversation I had with Bernie was he called to tell me that he was opening up for a month at MGM Grand in Vegas.
In 2007, Bernie shocked everyone when he announced that he was retiring. He appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman and said he wanted to slow down and enjoy life. He had spent so many years working nonstop, and now he just wanted to take a break. He told Letterman, "I've been on the road for so many years. It's time to savor life a little bit." It was a rare moment where Bernie let people see the man behind the comedian. He had given so much to the world, and now he just wanted some peace. Even after saying he was going to slow down, Bernie didn't stop completely. He still took on acting roles and continued to make people laugh. In 2007, he played a funny and charming car salesman in Transformers. He also lent his voice to a character in the animated movie Madagascar, Escape to Africa. His last movies, Soul Men and Old Dogs, came out after he passed away. These movies proved how hard he worked, even when he wasn't feeling his best. It's heartbreaking to think about how much pressure he was under. Instead of taking care of himself, he kept going because that's what the entertainment industry expected. In August 2008, the world lost Bernie Mac. His final days in the hospital were heartbreaking. He was admitted on July 24th because he had a fever and was having trouble breathing. For 17 days, he stayed in the intensive care unit, fighting for his life. He was on a ventilator, struggling to breathe. His wife, Rhonda, and their daughter, Janice, stayed by his side the entire time. They watched as doctors tried to bring him back.
Actor, comedian Bernard McCullough died early Saturday morning at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. A publicist for the 50-year-old says he passed away from complications due to pneumonia.
His sister-in-law, Mary Ann Grosset, later shared just how hard Bernie fought. She described how doctors did everything they could to save him. She said they worked on him. They tried to resuscitate him twice. One time he came back for about an hour, but then he went into cardiac arrest again. That means his heart stopped, and the doctors had to bring him back. He fought hard, but his body just couldn't take it anymore. During those final days, Rhonda had a strange feeling. She said she felt a cold gust of wind pass by her as she waited in the hospital. When she was finally allowed to see Bernie in his recovery room, her worst fears came true. His eyes were wide open and he was trembling. It was as if he knew the end was near. It's hard to imagine how painful that moment must have been for his wife and daughter. After Bernie passed away, many people started asking, could this have been prevented? His wife, Rhonda, believes it didn't have to happen. She later filed a lawsuit in Chicago against one of Bernie's doctors, Dr. Renee M. Earls. She claimed that the doctor failed to provide the proper care when Bernie needed it the most. The lawsuit stated that Bernie had visited Dr. Earls on July 17, 2008, just a few weeks before he died. At that time, Bernie was already feeling very sick. He had a fever, was extremely tired, and was struggling to breathe. He stayed in the doctor's office for 9 hours that day, but his condition didn't get any better. According to the lawsuit, Dr. Earls ignored warning signs. Bernie's heart was beating too fast and he was having trouble breathing, but the doctor didn't call 911. He didn't send Bernie to the emergency room, even though it was clear that something was seriously wrong. Many believe that if Bernie had received the right care at that moment, he might still be alive today. One doctor even stated that Bernie's life could have been saved if he had gotten help sooner.
My last conversation I had with Bernie was he called to tell me that he was opening up for a month at MGM Grand in Vegas.
When Bernie passed away on August 9th, 2008, his family was heartbroken. He wasn't just a celebrity to them, he was their world. His wife Rhonda and their daughter, Janice, have shared many emotional moments about what he meant to them. Losing him left a hole in their hearts that can never be filled.
It was like, ooh, nothing I had ever seen, and I saw him and he was just shaking, and I remember going to him and I said, oh God, I said, Bernard, please don't die.
Rhonda was devastated. She had been married to Bernie for 30 years. They had been together since they were teenagers. Their love story was rare, especially in Hollywood. They respected and cared for each other deeply. Bernie had a way of making her laugh even when things were tough.
I said, I'm going to take care of you. If you just come back, I can take care of you.
When they first started dating, Bernie had a joke for Rhonda. He told her, "Girl, you better come on board this train because I'm going to be rich." She laughed and believed in him. They got married when Bernie was 20 and Rhonda was 19. They grew up together, faced life's ups and downs as a team, and became best friends. Rhonda said that more than anything, she treasured being Bernie's wife for 3 decades. When Bernie was in the hospital, struggling for his life, Rhonda was there, holding his hand. She begged him not to leave her. "Please don't die. I'm here and I'll take care of you," she told him. But sometimes love isn't enough to stop fate. After he passed, Rhonda felt lost. What am I going to do? She asked herself. Bernie had been her everything since she was 16 years old. Losing him left her searching for purpose. Their daughter, Janice, has also found ways to keep her father's memory alive. On October 5th, 2023, which would have been Bernie's 66th birthday, she launched a podcast called Bernie's Daughter. In her first episode, she shared a touching message to her dad. "You told me you would never leave me, and you've kept your promise," she said. Through her podcast, she hopes to make her father proud and show the world just how much he meant to her. Bernie Mac was more than just a comedian. He was a husband, a father, and a man who loved making people smile. He gave everything he had to his fans, sometimes at the cost of his own health. The entertainment industry demanded a lot from him, but he never complained. He just kept pushing forward, even when his body was telling him to stop. His death was a huge loss, not just for his family, but for the world. He brought joy to millions of people, and his legacy will never be forgotten. Bernie Mac's story is a reminder that even the funniest people can be hiding pain behind their smiles. He made the world laugh, but in the end, the world didn't do enough to take care of him. Rest in peace, Bernie Mac. You will always be missed.
Yeah, man, I'm a connoisseur of love. You know what I mean? I know how to touch. I know where they like it so much. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, it even rhymes.
Bernie Mac was a man who made people laugh, but in his last days, he fought a tough battle for his life. He was in the hospital struggling to breathe. Doctors had to put him on a ventilator to help him, but his condition did not get better. His family was always there with him, hoping he would recover. His sister shared a touching moment from his final days. She said Bernie opened his eyes and looked at his wife, Rhonda. She called his name and he nodded. She smiled and told him not to leave her, that she was waiting for him to come back. But Bernie simply shrugged, showing he was tired. His body had fought enough and he had no more strength left. After weeks of treatment in the hospital, Bernie's body could not fight anymore. His heart stopped and he passed away. He was only 50 years old. His death was a huge loss, not just for his family, but for his fans all over the world. People loved Bernie for his humor, kindness, and honesty. He was one of the best comedians of his time, and many admired him. His funeral was a big event, with almost 7,000 people coming to say goodbye. It showed how much people loved him, and how much he had touched their lives. Even after his death, Bernie's legacy continues. His friends and fellow comedians made sure he would never be forgotten. Steve Harvey, D.L. Hewley, and Cedric the Entertainer announced a special honor for Bernie. The city of Chicago declared November 14th as Bernie Mac Day. This was a big moment because Bernie loved Chicago and the city loved him back. His old school also honored him by renaming its auditorium after him. Bernie may be gone, but his name, laughter, and legacy will live on forever.